I've rehooped with my stabilizer that was extended from the previous block. Notice that it is in the hoop but out of the stitching area. And I've deleted the diamond pattern. I will need 4 triangles to complete the diamond into a rectangle. 2 of them will need to be mirror images of the other, and set it. And I'm going to go in to the edit mode and make a copy of this, and I'm going to rotate the copy 180 degrees, and notice that it just forms a rectangle, much more efficient for sewing, but I do want to move it apart enough that there's a full inch between the 2 of them for the seam allowance. Now I'm going to add the mirror image. Remember, this was the one I first imported. I'm going to go in and I'm going to import this one, which is the mirror image, set it, do the same thing I did before, make a copy, rotate, and let us move these up out of the way. Oops. In the right direction. I think that's a little bit more than the inch we need between the 2 of them. So that looks good. Let's go into embroidery, go in and center this in the embroidery hoop. So we are ready to stitch our triangles. As before, our first line will be the placement line. Remember the corners of batting that we saved after we trimmed the batting from the diamond shape? Let's use those now. Again, trim close to the batting line. Notice that it is at least 1/16 of an inch inside the actual seam line. The next step will be the placement line for the black fabric. Cover the placement line with your black fabric. Be sure to leave at least a 1/2 inch seam allowance around your piece. But again, this is trimmings from when we trimmed away and when we made the diamond fabric. And line up the next piece of fabric, right sides facing for the seam line. Press the fabric, tape it out so that it'll get tacked down nice and flat. And that is how quickly you have one corner triangle to make the diamond into a large rectangle. Move on to the next corner. After trimming the fabric along where the next piece of fabric will go, stitch out the placement line. Lay down your folded fabric edge border and stitch the tack down line. After taping that piece of fabric in line, stitch down the final tack down, and triangle number 2 is done for your diamond rectangle. With the 5 pieces embroidered, the next thing to do is to cut away all of the pieces from the stabilizer. And now it's time to trim your seam allowance away from the stitching line. I actually find this easier to do from the back side, where you can line your ruler up carefully with the actual stitching line. Step now is to piece your pieces together. We have a seam line. It shows you exactly where the corner is. Send a pin through there and a pin through the other corner. Go to the other end, do the same thing. A pin through the point and through the stitch line point at this end. With your pin straight through where the point is, take 2 pins and put one on each side of that pin, and you should have the exact starting point for this embroidery design. Then you may pull that out, go to this end, make it sure that it's straight in again, and a pin on each side. Then take it to your machine and stitch just barely inside the stitch line, taking your pins out as you reach them. See, it's right between the placement line and where the batting was tacked down. You don't want to have batting in your stitches, as your seam will not lay flat then. So we have the first piece up. I'll take that to the iron and press that seam open. With the first piece pressed in place, do the same with the next piece. Pin through the point into exactly where this intersection is with the other seam, straight up and down to the other side through the point, lined up with exactly where the stitch line point is on this side, straight up and down, add a pin to each side, and at the other end, sure it's straight up and down. If it's tilted, that'll do away with what we were trying to do in getting a perfect point. Same thing on the third side. Find the point, put your pin in it, and exactly the same thing for the fourth and final side. Pin in the point, pin in the corresponding point,